Hey guys, all right, so it's a new day. Still a little under the weather. Woke up feeling a little bit worse than yesterday, where I did my break in service checklist video. This video is going to be dedicated strictly to the oil change of the Kawasaki Ninja H2 2026 model year. And don't get me wrong, in the manual it says very clearly to please have it done at a authorized Kawasaki dealer. However, there is plenty of information on their primary website under the warranty, frequently asked questions, all this good stuff, that you are indeed more than welcome to do them yourself as long as you keep receipts and flawless documentation of everything used, the torque specs, etc. So if you were going to do this yourself and you wanted to ensure no issues with your warranty and you wanted to ensure perfect quality and you document those things, here are some things you would want to have available to you. And I'm going to walk you through each one step by step. And of course, the whole process of how to check the oil and different odds and ends on a Kawasaki specifically. So let's jump into it. All right, so first and foremost, if you were to do the first service and or just get your oil changed, yada yada, at a dealership, yeah, if you bought all the tools and supplies you needed or took it to the dealership, it's cheaper to take it to the dealership because to do the oil change appropriately, you're going to need 2 pit bull stands. For the H2, you need a single-sided swing arm, which you have to special order a pin that goes into the single-sided swing arm portion. You would need a torque wrench, a couple of Allen head socket types. You would need a socket set itself, and a ratchet with oil and oil filter. You very, very, very quickly can spend a lot of money obtaining all of those items. However, it will save you a ton of money in the long range. As you can tell, I personally have been doing my own oil changes on bikes, and I have 3 different pit bull stands, and I've been doing it for 5 years, so I have way above and beyond made my money back. So for the oil filter for the H2 specifically, there are 2 different types depending on, even say, let's say you need a high flow or K&N 303. They have a 303, but they also have a 303 RC. And I cannot say this enough. Always go with the racing filter. And the reason for that is on the back of the filter, there is a 17 millimeter bolt that is put onto the back of it. Here, I'll grab it to show you. Now, for the H2, it is very specifically a high flow or K&N 124 filter. And you can see right there, there is a big nut on the end of it that fits flawlessly on a 17 millimeter socket. And they're very forward in saying that it's not for putting it on, but it is great for when you're taking it off, especially on a bike like this. It's in a convenient area, but not super convenient. Any sort of help you can get taking it off for the second round is greatly appreciated. So, all right. You've got your pit bull stands, you've got your torque wrench, you've got all the things you need. Your oil drain bolt, you want to know how to get that on and off, where it's located, if you have a crush washer, all that good stuff. For me, on this bike, my torque spec for that is 18 foot-pounds, and I need an Allen key size 8. My oil fill plug, on a lot of bikes, especially Kawasaki, it's usually just something you can grab and pinch onto and twist. But for this one in particular, the H2, it also requires an Allen key size 10 in order to get in there and loosen it. So they must really not want people filling their own oil, which I find rather interesting. But that might be because of how you check the oil on a Kawasaki. Now, depending on how familiar you are with other brands, you can check the oil with it on the side stand. But Kawasaki is very forward, very honest, and it says in almost every user manual that I've ever had of every Kawasaki to hold the bike upright and level. You must allow the bike to run for several minutes, shut it off, and allow the oil to settle for several minutes, and then look through the looking glass with it level, not on the kickstand, and then gauge whether or not you do or don't need oil based on how it sits between the two fill lines, the low and the max. And a lot of people will check the oil with it on the side stand and have a false reading, and they'll be like, oh crap, I gotta add oil. No, you're just not checking your oil right. So that's where these Pitbull stands come in, because it is extremely difficult to be sitting on the bike holding it upright and somehow get your head down low enough or use your camera to fling it down to try to get a photo or video of where it's sitting while you're sitting on it, hoping that you're not leaning the bike while you're leaning over. So the Pitbull stands are a huge help. Make sure you have some sort of oil container and like a drain pan available to you. So first and foremost, to start this oil change, because the bike is fully cold, we're going to let it run for a few minutes and get that oil nice and warm and get the crap and soot moving. So that way when we drain it out, it comes out very flowing, very like liquidated. It's going to be moving. Versus if I were to open it up right now, the oil will pour out, but it is going to be much slower. It's going to be much more... it'll be much more akin to a slime than a liquid water type deal. I mean, I'm making up two extremes just to make a point. But that's the point of letting the oil heat up first. So I'm going to do that now, and then we can check it in a minute. So we just finished letting it run for several minutes, not several as in like 7, but like, you know, a handful of minutes. Let the oil get warmed up so it comes out nice and smooth. So normally, yes, you can indeed put it on the rear Pitbull stand while you do that, because it's going to be in neutral. It's not like it's the rear tires moving, but I don't have a whole lot of faith or confidence in the single-sided swing arm like I do the double-sided swing arm from Pitbull. So I was just more comfortable just letting it stay on the ground. And now I'm going to do only the rear, because since the goal is to drain the oil out, and based on how the front of the bike is going to be, the drain plug is right at the bottom here. So when I do that, it's going to all slope down right out. It couldn't have a better spot for gravity to assist me in getting every little drip of crap out of there. So let's do that now. All right, so we got it on the rear stand. So next we're going to go down here and take care of our drain plug, put our oil pan here, and we're going to start draining and getting everything moving. All right, so I wish I could give you a better view using the stand. However, for this particular item, it looks like I'm going to have to do it by hand, which is totally fine. So, just so you can see where everything is, there's our drain bolt. And then our oil filter is thankfully right above up here. So you can see how close these are to the headers and the hot pipes from running the bike, and why it would be so nice that if it had a little none on there, I could get it out without any worry of coming in contact with that at all. But unfortunately, OEM doesn't have one, so this is my life right now. So let's get this nice little thing flowing. All right, so I just broke it loose, so now it'll be nice and easy, and you just keep going until it comes off, but you want to catch it and not let it fall in there with all the oil. You'll notice I have this pretty far forward because based on the angle here, the oil is going to be shooting out in an arc. And here we go. We got our nice little chocolate river coming out. And this is going to be what you're inspecting. This is what you're going to be looking through, checking out in the light, looking for any sort of metal shavings or other contaminants to kind of let you know if there should be a big concern about things coming out of your oil or your engine. So some people will take a magnet and go magnet fishing in there just to see if there's anything, but you can ideally just kind of look at it, especially since this is break-in fluid. It's not going to be so dark you're not going to be able to like really see through it. See, now we're slowing down a little bit. Move this over here, and we're just going to let it keep draining. All right, guys, so while that's dribbling out and just kind of making slow but steady progress, let's take a moment to look at where we're at. We have the oil officially draining. I took the fill off so that way more air is getting into the system to allow more, or at least a slightly better flow rate. Once it's completely done, I'm going to put the drain plug back in and move my way up to the filter, because even if you get all the oil out of the main body there, every single time, no matter what you do, when you take that filter off, you're going to have continuous oil to dribble out of there too. So we're going to mess with that next, and I will see you guys in a minute on that. However, this is getting very close to why you should want a front, which is a part of the filling process. So now is a good time. Looks like it might have stopped here. I'll give you guys a sneak peek on it. All right. Let's see where we're at here. Still dribbling. All right. Well, we're going to just keep letting it dribble then. Technically, at this stage, there's nothing wrong with putting it in if you want to be impatient. But I've got all the time in the world right now, so I'm going to just let it keep going. Alright guys, I was able to find a slightly suitable way to set this camera up on the stand to show you. So all I did was I screwed the drain plug back in, just finger tight. And now we clean our area, make sure it's all nice and clean, because you're going to want to know that when you start it up and start cycling it after you've got it full and whatnot, whether or not it's leaking or dripping. So we're going to just clean our area, and we're going to torque spec it, because yes, technically you could just use something like this, pop this on there, and you could just tighten her down and just be done with it. But that's not what this video is about. We're trying to show you exactly how a professional / authorized Kawasaki dealer would go about it. And for this drain plug here, it says it is supposed to be 18 foot-pounds. So I'm going to set my torque wrench, and I'll be right back. Alright, so my particular torque wrench is a 1/2 inch, and obviously my little Allen here is not. So we're going to use a converter so that this fits perfectly on there, while this can perfectly connect to there. So now we're set to go. I have it set to 18 foot-pounds, and we're going to just wait until we hear the magic sound. All right, we're getting some tension. Now let's wait. There it is. Did you hear it? Click, click. That's our magic sound that we were waiting for. We now know that that is torqued to 18 foot-pounds, exactly as the owner's manual describes, which is exactly how a Kawasaki dealer would go about it. All right, I will see you guys in the next step here. Hold on. All right, guys, so this is where it can get a little dangerous because remember, the oil filter is literally right up in here behind everything you don't want to touch now that the bike is hot. So if we'd have had this from the start, we'd be golden, but this is just me whining and crying for now. Now, because I'm in no rush, there's no reason I couldn't leave this just like this all night long, come back in the morning when it's nice and cold, and get that off of there. But I'm going to try my luck, see how it goes. Hopefully I don't burn myself. I'll be right back with an update. Alright, so I admit defeat. I definitely tried a couple of different ways to get that OEM filter off exactly where it's located. And it's not going so hot because I don't have a bolt or anything to grip onto. So I am going to remove this one small body panel right here. And thankfully, it is just a very easy to remove size 3 Allen key piece here that will not cause any sort of aggravation at all other than what it already has. So I'm going to get this off of there and I'll be right back. Okay, so I took this panel off here and everything is significantly more exposed. Let me show you. I took this piece off and kept the bolts exactly where and how they go just to be safe. And now with that out of the way, all of this is significantly more exposed. If, God willing, I could have took this little bolt, this little rail off of there from the other side, but I just don't need to do that. I should be perfectly fine now. So I'll give you an update right after I get that off of there. Whew, okay, guys, I am finally back. I got the filter off, but I have no idea who put this on here because holy Jesus, it was on way too tight. There is no way this was put on at the correct recommended torque spec. Look, just getting it off, the amount of twisting I had to do force-wise crushed this filter. There is no way this was put on correctly. But I'll tell you what, it didn't leak. That's for darn sure. But either way, there's our Kawasaki. It might be backwards on the film, but that's our filter that came off. So just to make life easier for you guys, I'll read off that number. And it was pretty much saying that it is number 16097-009. So we go to our high flow, and it says that this particular filter replaces a Kawasaki 16097-009, which is exactly what this is. So we know we are in the clear to use our high flow filter. Now, the next thing I want to do is I'm going to clean this area that the filter came off of. So let me show you guys what it looks like right now. All right, so we are working with this area right here. And you can see where that is. I did end up having to disconnect that little bridge because the amount of room I needed to force that off was unbelievable. Okay, so now that that's all nice and clean, we're going to start with our high flow filter. Now, if you ever look at the instructions on the surface, it will say do not use this bolt here to install the filter. However, if you actually look at the instructions inside the box, it says very clearly that you can indeed use it for installation, but it is not to exceed 32 Newton meters, which I didn't do the conversion on what that is. But there is a hard limit where you should not use this for installation. But at a glance, they just say don't do it. But thankfully, our oil filter is only going to 13 foot-pounds, which for safety's sake, I will see what that is in Newton meters. But I shouldn't have an issue installing this filter. And I'm going to get this plastic off. And if you'll see, there's a little ring there. You'll dip your finger in some used oil and you'll just put a ring and make sure that you're working with a slippery, solid surface. Same thing with where it's going to go in underneath here. You'll dip it in the oil, make sure that everything is lubricated appropriately, as it's going to make installation significantly easier for you. All right, I'll be back after it's on. All right, just for safety's sake, 13 foot-pounds is like 17 point blah, blah, blah Newton meters. So I'm like half of what the maximum limit is. So I'm going to have no problem here. All right, I'll be back after the filter's on. All right, now I got my setup again. Have everything set to 13 foot-pounds. Because for us on this bike, the oil filter is only to be to 13 foot-pounds. Put it on there, and we wait. Just keep it going. Keep it going. Oh, getting resistance. Just a little bit more. There it was. You hear it? Click, click. Now, we are done. We've got our drain bolt in, and it is torque spec. We got our filter on. That is torque spec. I have to put this little panel back on with that little bridge component there. But we've at least got everything completed on this front. Alright guys, so now that we're at this point, the absolute best thing we could do for ourselves, since literally all that's left is to pretty much put oil into the bike, is to clean up our work area. We've got a drain pan full of oil that we should properly dispose of. I do have a oil container that I'm going to put it in, and then one day on a convenient day or when it's full, I'll take to an Advanced Auto Parts or place that will take my dirty oil and dispose of it properly. But until then, I do have a proper container, clean up all the area, put things back. This is a great opportunity to take the initiative to get yourself prepared for the final stint. Alright guys, so I just finished pouring the majority of the oil out of the oil pan, and I want to show you the bottom of it. Okay, you see all those little flakes? Little bits of metal and whatnot in there? That stuff is exactly what ends up bouncing around in your engine non-stop until you properly do that break-in oil change. So this is a big component of why it is so important to clean and do that break-in oil change, because otherwise who knows what kind of damage these little particles can do in your engine when left unattended. Alrighty guys, we were able to get everything back on. The filter is torqued, the drain plug is porked, everything is back on exactly where and how it's supposed to be. Now to just simply put oil inside of the engine, and this is a nice easy thing to do. Trust and believe, it is way easier to just add more than it is to try to siphon too much out. So I'm going to show you exactly how to go about this. But first, this is where our second thing shows up. Because if you have it up on the rear, you're going to need it up on the front so that the bike is actually level instead of like this, because that will give you a false reading for your oil. Alright guys, now we get to the easy part where all that's left is to fill it. And we got our funnel, we've got all the oil we need. This bike in particular, it is very important, like I just said, it is significantly easier to add oil. It is way harder to subtract oil. So it's always important to check what your oil capacity is and what it is with removing the filter and without. I am very lucky that it says without moving the filter, it should only take 4.1 bottles essentially. And with the filter change, I should expect 4.7 bottles. So if I have 5 bottles, I have more than enough but both numbers are 4 or higher. So I cannot go wrong putting 4 full bottles into the bike and then checking the oil. You know, that's when you start it up, you run it, and Kawasaki, you need the bike sitting straight up and level. After it ran for several minutes, then chilled out, turned off for several minutes, check the window. What do you need to do? Add more, or is it good as is? That's how you got to be real careful. And of course, with all the fill plugs, whether you have one of the ones that's just a pinch twist, or you have one that needs an Allen key or whatever have you, it is very important to know to check if yours has a torque spec. Thankfully, like, none of the Kawasaki's do, and even this one, which has an Allen key for an oil fill like plug, I looked it up everywhere. It's not in the owner's manual, nothing. There is no torque spec. It just says hand tight, which is the standard. So that is my next step. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to put 4 bottles into it and then wrap it up. So I'll see you guys in a minute. Alrighty, so I have 4 full bottles completely emptied and put in, plus I put the fill bolt back in. And as you can tell, it's still up on the stand, so don't be alarmed, but it says that I am way over full. But keep in mind that I have it on the back, and I do not have one on the front right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this, and I'm going to let it start up. I'm going to let it run for a couple minutes here real quick just to get some oil throughout the system, and then check and see what's going on in the sight glass after that. Okay, so I just took it off the rear stand, and look at the massive difference now that it is just sitting on the kickstand itself. Now it's saying, holy Jesus, there's no oil in there at all. That's how tricky it can be. Hey, alright, so sorry for the delay there. It's the next morning. I pretty much got to the point where I was checking the oil level with the bike even and up off the kickstand, plus obviously without it being on a stand or on both stands. So that way the bike was level in both planes of existence there. And I made sure to put the 4 bottles in. And unfortunately, I checked the time, and it was way too late at night to be starting that bike without getting complaints from the neighbors or God only knows who else. So I'm going to pick it up here this morning and just wrap up this last bit. So bear with me. Alright, so while it's running like that, that is your best opportunity to start looking for leaks while it's running, especially once it starts getting a bit warmer. You'll be able to take a much closer and better look at the drain plug, make sure that's snugged up right and there's no leaks coming from it. You'll be able to look at the oil filter, confirm that that is nice and solid, it formed a good seal, and that there's no leaks or anything coming from that. And of course, your fill plug, just to make sure that's all good, not leaking in any way, which honestly I've never had one of those leak or spit oil in any capacity, so I can't imagine that you'd ever have an issue. But it's best to just take a look at everything, and that's just the best time for you to be looking for leaks. So now I let it run for several minutes. I'm going to let it sit for several minutes, and then we're going to hold it level, and we're going to look at that window and see where the oil level is after only 4 bottles, despite the bike saying it should take 4.1 to 4.7. That way we know exactly how much more to add. Okay, so with 4 bottles even, I wasn't even in the window yet. So I just put half of a bottle in, so now I'm at 4.5. And I'm going to check it here in a second after I give it a moment to settle and see where our new oil level is. Alright, so 4.5 bottles. I was at the low line. I just added not quite another quarter of the bottle, but I definitely added like another eighth, maybe a dash more than that, to get me a little closer to that 4.7 that the book says it'll probably eat. So I'm going to check and see where it's at now. Yep, that worked like a charm. I am a dash under the full line now, so that is good with me. I've got approximately this much remaining in this bottle here, which puts me at a pretty good amount. So that does coincide with the paperwork. Now, it's funny because if you were to check this on the kickstand, which you might be conditioned to do with depending on the brand you've had previously, but the kit with it on the kickstand, it says that there's like no oil in there at all. Critical, critical, critical. Make sure you're measuring oil with the bike even. So other than that, that's it. That's the entire oil change. Pretty much the only thing left for me to do is go dispose of the used oil and ride on and have fun. So thank you guys for watching the oil change video. Sorry it was kind of like flippy floppy. I'm still under the weather, and it was a lot more difficult to film this than I thought it was going to be. I'm definitely trying to power through, but I'll see you guys later. Thanks.